would say is millennials are statistically the first generation that's likely to do worse off than their parents.
You know what? That's what they said to us as well. Every generation is told you're going to do worse than your parents. And you know what? People pick it up and they do what they do and they raise themselves. And this is what you got to do. It's called being a good citizen.
It has never been more difficult to own a home in America. Unless you're a large firm purchasing swathes of homes for reasons, you most likely will not own any home for the foreseeable future. Over the last couple of decades, we've seen home prices almost double. This has outstripped inflation and especially wages. And on top of this, the finance sector has taken a keen interest as homes as investment vehicles and rental properties. All of this is exacerbating the existing problem of rising home costs. With higher home prices comes higher rents as well. And the more you are paying for rent, the less you can save up to buy a home somewhere down the line. With many Americans stuck in this struggle, 50% of young millennials living with their parents, we are seeing basically a ton of Americans stuck in a never-ending hamster wheel of not affording buying their own home. I need to examine some of the factors behind this crisis and why they exist. But first, if you like the video, leave a like down below. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more of this content, and leave a comment if something interested you and you'd like to see a video of it, or if you just want to say hi. With each passing year, home prices in America continue to rise. In California, the problem is actually so bad that some suburban homes out of big cities are starting to scrape $500,000. And unless you can afford a 1 to 3% down payment, which is kind of the minimum that you can use to approach buying a home, you're going to be completely locked out of the buyer's market in this case. And like I said, while you're paying exorbitant rent, affording that down payment will be near impossible. And of course, if you fit into this category, you're likely struggling with student loan debt as well. This makes you perfectly disadvantaged in this market. Borrowers in this category enjoy less in savings while they pay off their student loans, and always have the threat looming over their heads of their credit being hurt should they not pay back their loans. And of course, you need decent credit to get decent loan terms if you're buying a home. In the absence of a new generation of home buyers, millennials, a new crop of investors has swooped in to take advantage of the current housing market. They typically pay upfront in cash to flip the homes for profit or hold on to them as rental properties, or sometimes it's even just cheaper to not rent out the home whatsoever. This is, of course, driving up costs, and millennials can't really keep up with these, like I said, cash money investors, and are therefore locked out of the housing market and stuck renting, while the existing crisis is driving up, like I said, rents across the board. We, as a generation, couldn't really afford to buy a home 5 years ago, and now it's gotten so much worse, and it's only going to continue to worsen in the near future. And as with any financial problem, this disproportionately affects people of color. They are disproportionately poorer than white people in the same age demographic, and therefore buying a home and affording rent is going to affect them disproportionately. A plethora of economic problems grow out of a housing market like the one that we're experiencing right now. All kinds of costs are influenced by home prices. You could think of homes as sort of the cornerstone commodity to a wider commodity market. They, of course, affect rents. They affect home insurance prices, other insurance prices. They affect abstract qualities like gentrification of communities, and then of all kinds of goods that we need to go about our modern lives. As a side note to this, real quick, if you live in states like California or Florida, a recent development has seen that insurance providers no longer will insure your home in these states because of the effects of global warming, those being fires in California and floods in Florida. In those states now, if you are a homeowner, you take on all of the risk and liability of having that property because you can no longer get it insured. It just gets worse and worse. The present state of the housing market's price conundrum is more or less due to the Fed raising interest rates. This was done to cool off inflation and bring it down to the acceptable rate of 2%. This has led to many housing developers freezing construction while they wait for better loan terms down the line. When rates drop again in a couple of years, they say, development on new housing will proceed again. By the way, whoever's president, when the interest rates go back down, is going to take all the credit for the economic benefit of those rates having dropped, just so you know. But back to my point, even though there is kind of a present reason for the current toxic housing market, the overall cause for the problem that we're seeing is housing as a commodity. Housing is something to be speculated upon, to be profited from. In countries where there is no current affordability crisis in housing, housing is presented as a non-market product. It has a price, but that price is controlled. It is sold and rented. However, the prices of that are anchored to a certain reasonable amount. It doesn't inflate in value because rent controls and public units prevent it from doing so. Let's look at a great example of this, Vienna. For years, Vienna has kept its housing prices in an affordable range for metropolitan standards. It does this with a robust network of public housing units that offer a direct option to rent for cheap and indirectly affect the rents in their community, bringing everything low. When there are cheap, affordable housing units on the table, rents in general will just tend to be lower because you have this cheaper option competing with private landlords. This is one of the big reasons that public housing is so fervently resisted here in the States. And this is also why you can basically pay $700 sometimes for a public apartment in one of the coolest cities in the world. By contrast, again, in America, housing is a commodity with zero limitations on how profitable and how exploitative it can be made to be. It can grow in price to whatever rabid investors want that price to be. And when public housing units are on the table for given communities, they are resisted by equity interests, developer lobbies, and of course, the dark forces of NIMBYs. There is just not enough political will, unfortunately, to correct our past mistakes that created this problem in America. We do not have a political enterprise willing and able to tackle this problem fully. Just like so many problems in America, it's going to go unsolved because somebody somewhere benefits from this being unsolved. The public housing candidate for president, Marianne Williamson, was promptly laughed out of the race, and she suspended her campaign early February, and there is no one else that is offering any kind of fix to the present conundrum. If this frustrates you, and you are financially frustrated by being in this kind of hamster wheel of never owning a home, and you are frustrated by the perpetual rise in rents that we see across the nation, I would suggest looking for any kind of local organizing efforts going on in your community. Tenants unions have generally leverage against landlords, ways to protect you from, unlawful evictions and rent hikes. If there is a co-op in your area that is essentially a nonprofit owned affordable housing, I would seek that out, get on a waiting list, do whatever you have to do to get into one of those. If you are one of the 50% of millennials who lives with their parents, just remember that it's not your fault. The current housing market is completely unfair to anybody who does not have any kind of inborn advantages in terms of wealth or generational wealth passed down to them. You were lied to repeatedly on multiple fronts, told to just kind of keep working harder, and every year that you saved up money and paid off your debts and got a better job and got a raise, housing prices just continued to rise and rise and rise. And now they are at a point that it is becoming completely unattainable. However, don't completely lose hope. Try to be optimistic. Try to build some kind of personal capital, raise your job profile, all the things you can do, sans a home to the point that you could make enough money to eventually buy one. But don't feel bad if you're renting for the rest of your life. That seems to be the fate of many millennials. That about wraps it up for this one. If you like the video, go ahead and leave a like down below. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and comment down below if you found anything interesting in this video. I will leave it at that. See you in a week.